The next level doesn't always mean the next level of revenue, the next level of growth.
Our lives are noisy enough. And what we're really looking for is quiet.
There's rooms that can drain instead of elevate. You deserve to be in rooms with people that are incredibly successful.
Fear is a great place to be. It makes you uncomfortable and it creates growth.
We can be our own worst enemy and our own biggest cheerleader at the same time.
If you're ambitious, you're always going to want to go to the next level of whatever your version of success looks like, is what I say.
Welcome to the Trailblazers, the space where high-achieving women finally exhale and feel deeply understood.
We are Brittany Anderson and Disha Solanki, two leaders who have built, scaled, exited, and supported multi-8 and 9-figure companies
while carrying far more than most people ever see.
Here we go where most conversations stop.
The burnout, the pressure, the ambition, the identity shifts, the invisible load, and the moments you almost quit.
This is where the real story begins.
Trailblazers.
So it's not that successful women don't join communities, is it, Brittany? It's something more along the lines of, we're not avoiding connection. What we're doing is avoiding disappointment.
Yeah, I think the call for today is to maybe say some things that not enough women who have generated and created a level of success are saying out loud. I think that women, especially women, like we look around and we know some incredibly successful women who have, let's just say, moved mountains, done things that seem almost impossible. They want connection, they want community, they want a place to land. But the idea of joining said community or staying with the community, it can feel heavy, it can feel inconvenient, and sometimes just point blank, it feels like the wrong fit. And so I think that's the conversation for today is, why is it that as we look around, number one, there's not enough women in the room. There's more than there has been. But why aren't there more women in the room in some of these great communities, great masterminds, whatever you want to call them? And then why are some women not joining, or are they dropping even in and amongst the success they're creating? So that sets the tone for today. And I think I want to just talk through, Disha, I think you and I have conversations around this a lot, around some of the things that we're hearing when we are out and about in the communities. I use the term mastermind. Honestly, for those listening, I kind of hate that term. I think it's overplayed. I think it's overused. And I think sometimes it's not always fitting for the community it's talked about. But things like, it's just another thing on my plate. That is something that we hear a lot where you're jumping from one thing to another. If you are entrepreneurial and you're listening to this, you quite possibly are running multiple businesses. You're juggling many different things in life. And you're like, I don't need one more thing on my plate right now. It might slow me down. So I know, Disha, that's something that we've heard, that we've talked about. So, just maybe talk about some of the comments that you've heard in regards to women that are either, leaving communities that we've seen that aren't joining in the first place, or that are hesitant to even become part of something.
Well, I'll talk about myself first. I don't join many communities myself because I don't feel like they fit with me, if I was totally honest, or they don't fit in with my life or the way that I run my life and business. And that's something a lot of comments that I have had back is that a lot of women are in places where they're not understood, or they're misunderstood, or they are deemed to be on the same playing field as their male counterpart. Now, we all like to think that we are. Let's be honest. I do. You do, Brittany. We are, but we have all of the extra baggage that goes with it. And it's having that understanding that comes with us, and it doesn't go away. It's part of a fluid life and a fluid business as well. I met a great lady at a Tony Robbins event, and she was sat next to me and we were just chatting, and she'd come by herself too. And she said something that to me when I was talking to her about the Trailblazers, and she said, you know what? The reason I don't go anywhere in terms of networking and communities, etc., she said, is because she is in a family-run business and she's the only daughter. And she feels that she has to carry the load for everything that's in her business, in her own family life with her own children, and her extended life and business. And she said, I just feel like nobody understands. And so I've stopped going out and I've just started putting on my big girl pants and going, I've got to just get on with this. But in reality, what she really wants is some cheerleaders or some solutions. And she said, what I'm really lacking in the communities I join or the networking events I join is the solutions to my perceived problems. Now, she quite rightly said, I'm very lucky. She said, she earns a really good income. They live in a lovely part of the world, in a lovely home. But she said, it doesn't mean that her problems are any different to somebody else's. And they're not necessarily problems, they're just nuances of running a business and life in that scenario that didn't resonate with somebody else.
It makes me think too, when you are building and creating new levels of success, because let's face it, when you are a high achiever and maybe a little type A and maybe slightly ADHD, which Deesh and I can both raise our hands to this, like, don't leave us alone for too long. I think the thing that can happen too is there's never a point where you're like, wow, I've made it. Now, I will say this, that the next level doesn't always mean the next level of revenue, the next level of growth in terms
Yeah.
of the dollars and cents and financial figures and all of that. A next level growth can be, I like to call it graduating, like graduating from one aspect or point in your life to another. So, that can be, I've seen so many women get to a point where they are darn near that, or let's just face it, maybe they're at the burnout phase, at that phase of like, I've built businesses, I've grown, I've maybe sold a business or two or three or more. I have helped others generate success. And I know I don't want to like not do anything or not contribute, but I don't want to do what I've always done. And so it's time for me to transition to something else. It's that whole notion, and you see this, I think it's promoted a lot out there about like moving from the life that looks good into a life that feels good. So sometimes that next level growth can mean a total life 180, a total transition. And what happens then is that you outgrow the communities that you've been part of because maybe the direction they're going or they're taking, it doesn't align with what you want anymore. And I think that's where, Disha, you and I hold that same belief of you've said it a million times, like nobody's dream is less significant than the other. If your dream is to go, I mean, we'll be a little facetious here, but like sell everything and just live quietly in a silent community for 6 months, like, hey, do you? Let's figure out how to make that happen. But I just wanted to call that out that sometimes when you're part of different communities or groups or whatever it is, even networks of friends, networks of, it doesn't have to be like some paid community that you're part of or paid mastermind or big Tony Robbins session or whatever it is. Sometimes in life, you just outgrow it and your needs change and your desires change. And you need just a space where you can show up as authentically yourself as possible. And I think that's what's been lacking. And I think that's really why communities all across the globe, truthfully, have failed women because it's either grow, scale, power forward, do all the things, or it's maybe more of like, hey, maybe you've had an interest in dabbling in entrepreneurship or business ownership, so come into this community. But we just haven't seen anything that just completely meets you where you're at, puts you around incredible women that are all, trying to achieve their own level of success without feeling the pressure to be a certain way or show up a certain way. Um,
And I think a lot of that is that our lives are noisy enough, and what we're really looking for is quiet. And because there's so much going on, and maybe the next level of growth is how to quietly grow, not with the amount of noise and input that we have into our brains and the output we have to create because of the input too while we're there.
Mhm. I think back, you brought this up, Disha. So I was in a mastermind, and this has been years ago. And I'm sitting there at a table, and it was with a few different gentlemen in kind of like a hot seat breakout. And I was talking about some of the things that we were wanting to do with, building a community for women, some of the things that I've done within, our work in consulting and helping businesses really create alignment and all of these things. And I never forget, this gentleman looks at me and he's like, oh, that's really nice. I did that about like 15, 20 years ago. And then I really shifted and I moved on to something bigger. And I was like, what just happened here? That was like a slap on the pedestal. But it felt so demeaning. And I want to believe that this gentleman didn't mean or intend it to be that way. But it was almost like, oh, well, dismissive. That's the word. He had no idea. Like, he had no idea what kind of success or, credibility I had built up and, anything like that. But it was just very dismissive because I was at a point in my life where I didn't want to build what he was building at the time. Would I have had that capability? Probably, if I wanted to go that direction, or at least known
Yeah.
people that could help me get there if I wanted it. But it was a gap between what we want and how we wanna feel seen and heard, and in that space, it was, like, the biggest turnoff on the planet because I'm sitting here going, "Wow, I just feel like I was completely dismissed." So, I just think the moral of the story there is that there's rooms that can drain. There's rooms that can drain instead of elevate, and I think that's why, and honestly, I don't know that this only applies to women, I think it can apply to men too, but I think that when you show up in a space and you can't just fully speak to what it is you're building, what it is you wanna create or not create, and you don't feel completely supported, that's when we start going inside. That's when we start kinda shelling up or putting the armor on, or which I mean, Disha, you and I have both been down this road at some point in our lives, start building something that we actually don't even really want, just
Yeah.
because of external influence or external opinion, which that's
Mhm.
not good either.
And you know what? You've reminded me of a specific time when, I had an executive recruitment business at that time, and I was taking my team out for a Christmas lunch, right?
Mhm.
And it was my business at the end of the day. And even just settings like this, where the waiter actually brought the bill to the tallest guy on our team, and he said, That's not my bill. I'm not paying it. Like, you need to go look for, my boss." And he came over to me after and he was like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting it to be you." And I thought, "What's that supposed to mean?" And it's those sorts of things, and I didn't say that out loud, obviously, but in my head, and I think we all are guilty of this, that we internalize it. So I think to myself, what was I doing that day that led someone to believe that I wasn't good enough to be leading this business or leading this team and all those types of things? And those little nuances and situations carry through, I think, in every part of life that we go through, whether we're turning up to a networking event, which in my case, and I know for you, Brittany, you know, 80-90% of the people at the event that you're going to tend not to be female. And I'm a strong believer in, in order for us to get where we want to be, we need support of males too. And I know I speak for myself. My husband is a great role model in that. He's very supportive. He's like our biggest cheerleader, right, Brittany?
Yeah.
And it's important to have those people in our lives because it gives us a different aspect, but we also are understanding of that, right? But to walk into rooms where that's not where most people exist in terms of the supportive nature for us, that's a difficult place to be.
Mhm. And, I almost wanna go to the flip side of this too, because I think there's, like, 2 polar ends of the spectrum, I think that we're talking about here, is
Mm.
number 1, you want to be in rooms, and I think that's kind of the underlying theme of what you're saying too, Disha, is it's like,
Yeah.
you deserve, like, I'm gonna say this, like, to any amazing, incredible woman or man that follows us that is listening to this right now, is you deserve to be in rooms with people that are incredibly successful. You deserve to be in rooms where people have created success far beyond what you can even dream, because I think that's where our call it imaginations, like our childlike play comes
Yeah.
out because we look around and we're like, wow, if he can do it, I think I can. Or if she can accomplish that, there's nothing stopping me from doing the same. And I like her modeling and I like that idea and I like that growth. So again, you got to be in the rooms or in the spaces with people that have done even more because it brings us out of our shell and shows us that next level of what's possible. Again, you define your own possible. You define what
Mhm.
possibility looks like for you, but that's important. Now, on the flip side of things, I have also come into and had experience going into communities that are maybe more geared towards like the solopreneur. Now,
Yes.
preface this by saying there is nothing wrong with that. Like, if you are a woman and you're like, "You know what? Maybe I've had a career, maybe I've been a mom for a lot of years," whatever it is, and you're like, "I wanna dabble into this world of entrepreneurship," do you. Like, try it. You know, we believe, like, pursue whatever you see as possible, but I wanna give a couple caveats because, like, there is a lot of misrepresentation and glorification and glamorization of entrepreneur life out there.
Absolutely.
It's like
No doubt whatsoever.
it's
It's all, I know, green fields and roses, maybe?
yes, it's like, be your own boss, work from the beach, like, there's no ceiling, you can earn like, there's nothing that kills me more, and, like, please, again, if you're listening to this and you have this in your marketing, I'm gonna apologize ahead of time because I'm not knocking it if it works. If it works, you're
Yes.
telling the truth, like, hello, go, run, that's amazing, but if you're out there and we have these, call it ads or reels even that pop up, and it's like, "This is how I made, you know, $100,000 this month, and all you have to do is these 3 things, and it's just easy and it's amazing, and if you spend this money to buy my course, then you'll learn how to do it too," and it's like, oh my gosh, 95% of that stuff out there is just misinformation, and so I think that this is the other side, and what I'm getting at is that there is a space for just getting started. There are spaces out there where you can learn from incredibly talented people that do lean more into that solopreneur, that first getting started, that kind of startup phase. But if you are a woman who has already built a business or businesses and you find yourself in a space like that, you might be like, you know what? Like, I have to show up again and be the strong one, be the sage, be the one that is
Be the
giving
one with
all.
have all the answers too, because they look up to you like you have all of the answers, and then you find yourself once again in the wrong room. And in a room full of people that don't necessarily understand the level that you're playing at. And everyone's playing at a different level, and that's totally fine. It's just that you wore that t shirt and you've come through it, and you know that there's another side to it or the other side to it. And you also know, moving on, that there will be another level and there'll be another side to wherever you are moving on to.
Yes, and I think that last part is so perfectly said, and the bottom line is, it's like, not everybody's cut out for entrepreneurship. So if you find yourself in a space where you are, you know, engaged more with people that don't have anything off the ground yet, it can feel really draining, and entrepreneurship's not for everybody. So those people that are trying to get started might fizzle out, and then your energy is depleted, and you're like, "Wow, I just spent a lot of time and energy in maybe more of a mentorship seat when that wasn't the intention." So again, when you
Yeah.
are considering and vetting communities and deciding what you wanna be part of, that's a really important one, is to do your deep dive diligence to understand who else is in the room. This is the biggest thing, like, we've talked about this before too, Disha, of like, if I look at a roster or even, like, catch wind of some of the people that are gonna be in the space, and if it makes me a little
Mhm.
nervous because of how successful they are, then that's usually the space that I should probably join. If
Oh,
you
definitely. You're scared of being in the room. Fear is a great place to be. It
Yeah.
makes you uncomfortable and it creates growth. Totally.
Yes, and if I'm looking at a room and I'm like, "Oh, I feel very confident coming in and I know I can support it and show up," that's maybe should be like a speaking gig because, it's just different, and we can't help. The human brain wants to find comfort. So, I just think when you're vetting a community and you're making that decision, it's so important to level up and to really find that space that supports where you want to go, not necessarily just where you're at. Understanding that you want a community that actually gets to the core of what you want versus trying to tell you what it is that you want. So that's the other little caveat there.
I also think that it's important because it means that your creativity can also go to the next level too.
Y
It means that you can say whatever you want to say in a creative space and for someone else to vet it and really like say to you, is this worth it? Is it going to work? All those questions. And you're not afraid to have those conversations now because you're a little bit more seasoned in business, you're a bit more established, and you know that every idea that comes into your brain cells isn't necessarily a great one, but you need someone to bounce it off. Otherwise, you're living in your own echo chamber of really great thoughts, right?
Yep, and sometimes that echo chamber is a dangerous place too, because we can be our own worst enemy and our own biggest cheerleader at the same time. And I think that boils down to choosing a community that best supports you and putting yourself around, women who truly have your best interest at heart, that want to grow together. It sure as heck beats trying to go it alone. And I keep thinking about this is years ago. I was in a high level mastermind, an absolutely amazing one that actually Disha and I met in. But even before that, I was in a session and talking to a couple ladies who were both in the legal space. And they were sharing how they had spent so much of their life just head down, forging forward, building their businesses. They had built incredible practices, businesses that most would look at and be like, wow, that is absolutely incredible. Like, I can't even fathom that success. So what they had also done is through that head down journey, they put off having a family and then got to a point where later in life they started their family, later than maybe what
Yeah.
was traditional at the time. I think times continue to evolve, but started their family later in life. And the one was like, I waited so long for this and I wanted these children so desperately bad. Now I feel guilty for pursuing anything that supports me. Like, my heart
Oh my
broke in half.
goodness.
And then this other gal, she was like, I'm really fortunate. Like, I do have a lot of success. So, my husband and children travel with me. And the problem is that when I'm in here, I feel like I should be out at the pool enjoying time with them. But then if I'm out at the pool and I'm ditching out on sessions, then I'm feeling guilty and like I'm not serving myself. And so both of these women, incredibly talented, had so much to give, had so much to
Mhm.
gain at the same time, they both dropped out of that group. And I just was so sad about it because I'm sitting here going, this isn't right. Like, how success is promoted and how women are supported makes us feel like we have to choose one aspect of life over the other. You either choose success or you choose family. You either choose to pursue your next level of success or you choose to be a good mom and a good wife or a good partner. And I just don't believe it. I think it's BS, quite frankly. I think that we should be allowed to do it all and do it in a way that we want, but we cannot do it if we don't have the right people around us. So whether we're talking a community, whether we are talking, immediate support circle, we need people in our lives that can help us have and create the life that we want while holding space for us to not have judgment over what our choices are. And I think that is one of the biggest, I think, costs or gaps if we don't have the right people around us, because you don't have to choose. I don't believe. I don't think you have to. I think you just need the right circle around you.
Have the right circle and also be empowered to make the choices that you feel are right for you, and to ensure that you feel like you understand your ambition isn't too much. Maybe it's too much for somebody else, or maybe it's too much for lots of somebody else's, for example. And that the struggles that you're going through are not thrown away or minimized or anything like that, because that's easy to do. When you achieve a certain level of success, it's very easy for anyone to go, well, what would she know? She's already at this point, but you didn't already magically arrive at a point, right? You went through a whole journey to arrive where you are right now. And that involves struggles and ambition, which apparently you've got to switch off when you get to a certain point, but it doesn't work like that, right? If you're ambitious, you're always going to want to go to the next level of whatever your version of success looks like, is what I say. And you'll have a different set of struggles. They're just not the same set that you had before. And you may be in this messy middle kind of point where actually you have generated a lot of success, but maybe you were earning more and you were you were more profitable when you weren't where you are right now. And it's painful to be where you are right now because on the outside, everything looks great, right? And it's being able to understand that what works for you might not necessarily work for me. And we may all have a different set of circumstances too while we're there. Some of us have great support systems, others don't. I mean, I read a book not that long ago, actually, from a very, very well known author. And I would probably have to say I disagree with a lot of the advice that was in there for a startup entrepreneur, which is the audience it was aimed at. I, in principle, agree with a lot of the principles. Like, you should outsource as much as you can and pay for it and, believe in yourself, all these things, right? But there's also the reality of what that looks like. It comes at a cost. And when you first start out in business, you may not have enough money for childcare or, I don't know, laundry services, a cleaner, all of these types of things. And so that all comes with time and it doesn't necessarily all come right now. If you're fortunate enough to be able to make those payments to everyone, I'm sure you would get your escalator to success would be like shortcutted, right? And I did fundamentally disagree with it. I knew a lot of women who had read that book, and I said, you have to dig deep and really figure out if this is the right advice that you're reading right now. It's not the right advice for everybody.
Yes, and I think that's such a general concept to hold on to. There's plenty of people in my life that I know that love to consume, right? Like, and when I say consume, I
Yes.
mean they're reading all the time. They are, looking at different, social platforms and consuming content and looking at what's good, but they very rarely take action. And I
Uh-huh.
think that is the guilty trap to fall into because Disha, you and I, we love to read. Like our book obsession is ridiculous. Like when you have to literally either build or buy like even more bookshelves for your home because we have so many books and now in the days of audiobooks too, like I get it and there's Kindles and
A
there's all the
Kindle,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, there's different, like, whatever, whether it's the little devices that you could upload your books to. I have one of those, but I still love the paper and the look and the feel of a book. So, moral of the story there is sometimes we need people in our lives to also remind us, like, hey, you're consuming. And yes, there's some great tidbits in there, but which ones actually apply? And how can we help you move forward? Sometimes we need tough love in our lives. And good Lord, I know I need it. I know sometimes I need that kick in the pants too.
I totally agree. Or what I'm seeing most often now is that business owners are looking at small Instagram type reels. So they're looking at short clips of things, but they don't have the depth of understanding because they didn't take the time to go, I need to deeply understand whether this will work for me. And then I'm hearing lots of things being thrown about with no real understanding and backup of whether that's going to work. And so I do think that having not just the right women in the right circles, but being in the right room and having the right conversations is really important.
It is. And here's the deal. You can be wildly successful and still really stinking lonely in the climb. I think that high achieving women often assume that like isolation is a personal flaw, that it's our own fault. Like, well, we're just not cut out to be in and amongst a bunch of people. And we can actually beat ourselves up for that because we feel different or we feel out of place. I've gotten picked on about this ever since I was young. Like, I was always that person that could kind of just float between friend groups or different types, like very extreme different types of people, and
Yeah.
always just like love the people or just kind of fit in. And it was because I never really found a space that was like truly meant for me. And so I just had to kind of try and like dip my toe in a little bit of everything. And I just love human beings and love like the different dynamics. But at the same time, felt super isolated because I didn't have like that same super close knit group of, call it like friends or camaraderies or whatever you want to
Yeah.
say that like you feel like you can constantly lean on. And, I think honestly, that's, part of an underlying reason why I love the Trailblazers community so much and why Disha, you and I connected so well because it was like, we finally found our people. Like, what?
We're not that special, right? Like, there are other women or other people in the world who are going through what you're going through. It's a case of seeking them out, not going, oh, I didn't fit in those 10 rooms, so there definitely isn't a space for me. There definitely is a space for you somewhere. Just seek it out.
That is so well said. So I think here's what's going to happen in the future as we kind of round out this episode is I think that the future of communities in general, it's going to be how do I say this? The most successful communities of the future, they're going to feel customized. They're going to feel very intentional, and they
Yeah.
have to be aligned both internally in what is delivered and what happens on the inside as compared to the external in how it's presented and how, the leaders of those communities interact with others and around. There's not a one size fits all. There's no more hustle culture. We're all tired. Like, we love to build and we love new things and all of that, and we'll forever be wired that way. When you are successful, you are a high achiever. You can't help it. But there's so many ways to do it that don't require you to literally like kill yourself along the way. And no more forced sisterhood, like this whole girl boss thing. Like, it just makes me cringe. So again, if you love it and that's what you feel served by, like, do you? And I think that's wonderful. Again, there are spaces for everybody out there. You just got to find the one that fits you and lean into it. I think that's really the bottom line.
And I think, Brittany, when I would say for me, when I met you, I was really looking for connection. That's what I was
Yeah.
really looking for. I wasn't looking for anything in particular apart from to connect with another woman. I wasn't looking for new business. I wasn't looking for referrals. I came with a very open mind. And it's that connection that really makes a difference, because it means that now there's a safe space created and you can bring whatever you want to the table.
hmm So I guess if nothing else, this episode here, as we round it out, it's a reminder for you that you deserve a space where you don't have to lead all the time. You don't have to show up in a certain way. You can show up as authentically human as you are. That's the space that you deserve. And if anything that we talked about kind of hit you in the gut, my guess is it's probably because you're carrying too much alone. So our ask is that you tune in next week and that you feel seen, that you feel heard, and you feel supported, even if it is in this kind of virtual environment to begin with. That's all that we want for you listening as that successful woman who is building and creating and doing all the things and carrying the huge load that you feel like you have a safe space to land.
If this episode supported you, share it with a woman you respect and want to lift up.
Join our free Trailblazers community, the space where high-achieving women finally feel met.
You'll find the link in the show notes.
Until next time, keep moving forward, keep listening to yourself.
And remember, you deserve support too.